All right, so get ready, because today we're going deep into a story that's, well, it's fascinating, but also really disturbing. We're looking at a guy who is like the perfect community member. Successful, involved, even got a picture with the First Lady, but he was hiding a truly horrifying secret.
Yeah, it's that contrast, the stark contrast between his public image and the reality of what he did. That's what's really perplexing about this case. It forces us to face this unsettling truth that evil can hide under the most ordinary, everyday appearances.
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. So we're talking about John Wayne Gacy. Maybe you recognize the name, or more likely you've heard the nickname, the chilling nickname, Killer Clown. But hold on, before we get to that, let's unpack just how normal his life seemed. We got sources here detailing his life out in Norwood Park Township, his construction business, PDM contracting. He was even super active in local politics. Dedicated member of the Democratic Party, can you believe that?
And he wasn't just like, a casual volunteer or something. Gacy was deeply involved in his community, to the point where he's got a photo op with Rosalynn Carter, who was the First Lady at the time. That little detail, man, it gets super eerie knowing what we know now about the full scope of his crowns.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Almost like he was purposely crafting this image of respectability. And here's where the layers of this story get really, really complex. Our sources also talk about his volunteer work. Get this, he entertained kids, dressed as Pogo the Clown. He made the character himself, the costume, performed at parties, even marched in parades.
Yeah, that detail, that's crucial, because it adds a whole other dimension to his deceptiveness. Think about it. This man, who we now know was a serial killer, was out there hiding in plain sight as a beloved children's entertainer. Suddenly, that Killer Clown nickname, it takes on a whole new weight. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, it really sends chills down your spine. I mean, the deliberate creation of this persona, this access to children. But of course, the truth always comes out. Even with this carefully constructed facade, there were cracks. Our sources point to his first marriage, which ended after a 1968 arrest. He was convicted of sexually assaulting teenage boys. Served a measly 18 months of a 10-year sentence. Can you believe that?
That conviction, that's a pivotal point, right? Because it shows that Gacy's, his criminal tendencies were there long before the murders he became infamous for. He managed to bury this part of his past, moved back to Illinois, and even remarried in '72. But the darkness was clearly already there.
Right, this second marriage to Carol Hoff was almost like a reset, But sadly, it also provided a cover for the escalation of his crimes. After his divorce in '76, the murders, they increased dramatically. The sources say bodies were buried in the crawl space of his own house.
The timing of that divorce, it seems significant. With his wife gone, Gacy had more freedom to act on those dark impulses. Like, that period, it marked a point of no return. His dark side, it just completely took over.
It's terrifying to think about. This ordinary house, a place that should be about family and security, became a literal graveyard. All the while, he's out there, the respected businessman, the friendly clown, living this meticulously crafted lie.
And that's maybe the most disturbing thing about this case. It makes you question your assumptions about who you can trust, who you see as dangerous. Gacy's story forces us to confront this unsettling possibility that monsters can wear the most ordinary masks.
And, he might have kept up this horrific act indefinitely if it weren't for the disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Piest. This was in December of '78. This event, this disappearance, according to what we've got here, was the thread that finally unraveled Gacy's carefully constructed world.
Robert Piest's disappearance, it was the catalyst. It brought Gacy down. Investigators found out that Robert was last seen heading to Gacy's place for a possible job interview. That connection, even though it seemed weak at first, was enough for them to search Gacy's property.
And what they found, oh man, it was just horrific. The search turned up evidence linked to other missing young men, and that led to Gacy's arrest. That revelation, it must have sent shockwaves through the community.
Yeah, can you imagine? The collective gasp of horror when Gacy's carefully built facade crumbled, revealing the monster underneath. This wasn't just a guy who committed crimes, he was a guy who expertly manipulated a whole community, gaining their trust while committing unspeakable acts right under their noses.
The betrayal, it must have been profound. But before we dive into the trial and everything that came after, there's a chilling detail we gotta address: his confession. He admitted to murdering 33 young men, told them where their bodies were buried mostly on his property. Some of the victims, the sources detail this, were lured with promises of work, preying on their hopes and dreams.
Yeah, that confession and the way he just, casually described his actions, it's like a window into the mind of a predator. There was no remorse, no hesitation in his words. It shows someone who had completely dehumanized his victims, seeing them as objects to use and throw away.
It's chilling, the level of detachment. As the investigation went deeper, the details got even more horrifying. We've got sources that outlined Gacy's use of a rope trick. It was a specific way of strangling that he claimed he perfected. This, together with the meticulous way he hid the bodies, it just underscores how calculated and premeditated his crimes were.
It wasn't just violence, it was like a carefully planned ritual. Every element seemed designed to exert ultimate power and control over his victims. And that's what makes this case so disturbing. It wasn't a moment of bad judgment, it was a systematic pattern of depravity.
It's almost too much to handle, isn't it? The sheer scale of the depravity, the way he operated undetected for so long, it makes you wonder, what could possibly drive a person to do such horrific things?
That's the question that's haunted everyone involved in this case, the investigators, psychologists, the public, everyone. There's no easy answer, no single explanation that can fully explain the complexity of evil. We have sources that detail various theories. Some point to Gacy's messed up childhood, others suggest repressed homosexuality as a factor. One expert, Dr. Helen Morrison, she actually interviewed Gacy, and she described his emotional structure as being like an infant's.
Wow, that's a fascinating but really unsettling assessment. What does it even mean to have the emotional structure of an infant? Is it like a lack of empathy, an inability to connect with other people's suffering? I'm really curious to explore this further.
It's a concept that makes you think about the very foundation of human morality. Could someone be born without empathy? Or is it shaped by experience? It's that nature versus nurture debate, and in Gacy's case, it becomes a chilling exploration of the very origins of evil. Yeah, it's a question that, it continues to fascinate and disturb researchers even today. Was Gacy born a monster, or was he made into one? Our sources, they don't give us a definite answer, but they offer like a glimpse into the complex factors that might have contributed to his descent into darkness.
It's almost like we're trying to solve a puzzle, but with some pieces missing, But even without a clear understanding of his motives, the fact is, Gacy was a master manipulator. He built this elaborate facade, this double life, for years. It's almost unbelievable.
And that's why this case is still so relevant today. Gacy's story, it's like a stark reminder that we can't always judge by appearances. You can't always rely on your perception of who's good and who's evil. He shattered that illusion of normalcy, showing us that darkness can be lurking in the most unexpected places.
It's a chilling thought, yeah, for sure. It makes you question everything you think you know about the people around you. But okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Gacy's trial. It was a highly publicized event, and it really gripped the nation with all those shocking details. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury, they weren't convinced.
Right, the insanity plea, it was a common tactic in these kinds of cases, but it rarely works. In Gacy's case, the evidence, it was just overwhelming. His meticulous planning, his attempts to hide what he did, and that chillingly coherent confession, it all pointed to a calculated and deliberate mind, not one driven by some kind of uncontrollable madness,
So on March 13th, 1980, he was found guilty. He was sentenced to multiple life sentences and death penalties. Justice was served, but the scars of his crimes, they remain. Even after his conviction, Gacy, he continued to be a source of fascination and horror. Our sources detail how he spent his years on death row, doing something pretty unexpected. He started painting.
Yeah, this is where the story takes like a bizarre turn. He mostly painted clowns, often depicting his pogo persona. It's almost as if he was trying to reclaim that part of himself to somehow, I don't know, justify or rationalize what he did through his art.
It's eerie, right? Almost like he was trying to make sense of his own darkness through these paintings. And here's where it gets even stranger. After he was executed in 1994, a lot of his paintings, they were actually sold. Some of them were even bought by notable people like the musicians Gigi Allen and Lux Interior. It's this strange and unsettling intersection of art and infamy.
The sale of Gacy's paintings, it raises some complex ethical questions, doesn't it? On the one hand, it feels, exploitative, like profiting from the suffering of his victims. But then on the other hand, it shows how morbidly fascinated we are by the minds of killers. Do we buy these paintings because we want to understand evil? Or is it just some kind of like macabre curiosity?
Yeah, that's a question that probably doesn't have a simple answer, but amidst all the horror and the ongoing fascination with Gacy, there's also a story of hope and resilience. In 2010, the case was reopened. They wanted to try and identify the rest of the unknown victims using DNA technology. It's a reminder that even when faced with such darkness, there are people who continue to seek justice and closure.
That effort to identify those remaining victims, it's a testament to the enduring power of hope. You know, it's acknowledging that even years after Gacy's crimes, the families of those lost, they deserve answers. They deserve to know what happened to their loved one. And it also speaks to the advancements in forensic science, offering a chance to bring closure to these cold cases that once seemed impossible to solve.
Yeah, it reminds us that while evil might leave lasting scars, the pursuit of truth and justice, it never really ends. But even with all the investigations, the trials, the analysis, there's still a question that lingers. Could someone like Gacy exist today, hiding in plain sight within our own communities?
That's the unsettling question that Gacy's case makes us face. He shattered that illusion that we can easily spot evil, that it wears a certain face or fits a particular profile. He was like a chameleon, blending right into society, earning everyone's trust while harboring this dark secret.
It's a thought that sends chills down your spine. It's almost as if he was a ghost, a specter, haunting that idea of safety and security that we like to believe we have in our communities.
And that's exactly why we need to be vigilant, not in a paranoid, distrusting way, but in a way that acknowledges just how complex human nature can be. We need to educate ourselves about the tactics predators use, the subtle signs of manipulation and abuse.
So what can we do? How do we protect ourselves and our loved ones from becoming victims of someone like Gacy? Is there a way to recognize the warning signs, to stop history from repeating itself?
Well, there's no easy answer, no foolproof way to identify a predator, but there are certain patterns of behavior, certain red flags that can warn us of potential danger. We need to be aware of these signs, to trust our instincts, and to encourage a culture of open communication where victims, they feel empowered to speak out.
So open communication is key here. Talk to your kids, teach them about stranger danger, about healthy boundaries, and about the importance of trusting their gut feelings.
Exactly. Let your children know that they can always come to you with any concerns, no matter how small they might seem. Encourage them to trust their instincts and to never be afraid to say no if someone makes them feel uncomfortable. And the same goes for adults. Be aware of your surroundings, trust your instincts, and don't hesitate to set boundaries. If someone makes you uneasy, just remove yourself from the situation. Don't be afraid to report any suspicious behavior to the authorities.
It's about being proactive, taking steps to protect ourselves and the people around us. And it's about creating a culture where predators have nowhere to hide.
Exactly. We can't live in fear, but we can be vigilant, informed, and empowered to make a difference. Gacy's case, it's a tragic reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world, but it also highlights how important awareness, prevention, and the collective effort to create a safer society really are.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic, but it's a conversation we need to have. Yeah, it is a heavy topic, but you're right. We can't just, pretend these things don't happen. We have to learn from them. And part of that learning is recognizing that predators like Gacy, they often operate in cycles. There's a pattern to their behavior.
Yeah, that's a key insight. Understanding that cycle, it can be really crucial in prevention and intervention. It often starts with what we call the grooming phase. This is where the predator, they very carefully build trust and rapport with their potential victims. They might seem, charming, helpful, even vulnerable, to kind of gain sympathy and lower the victim's guard.
So they create this false sense of security. It's all calculated manipulation.
Precisely. And this grooming phase, it can be incredibly patient. It can stretch over weeks, months, even years. It's a slow, insidious process, designed to make the victim feel comfortable and dependent on the predator.
It's terrifying to think about that level of premeditation, the conscious effort to exploit someone's vulnerabilities.
It's a stark reminder that these predators, they're often master manipulators. They prey on individuals who are looking for connection, people who might be lonely or just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It's heartbreaking. And once that trust is established, then what? what happens next?
Well, the predator, they move into what we call the exploitation phase. This is when the abuse, whether it's, physical, emotional, or sexual, it starts to come out.
So the mask starts to slip. The predator's true nature, it's revealed.
Exactly. And this is often the point where victims start to realize that something is really wrong, but they might feel trapped, afraid to speak up, or even blame themselves for what's going on.
It's a horrific cycle. And it's just so crucial for victims to understand that it's not their fault. They're not to blame for what the abuser is doing.
Absolutely. Victims, they often experience these intense feelings of shame and guilt, and that can prevent them from seeking help. It's so important to emphasize that they are not responsible for the abuser's behavior. The blame, it lies solely with the predator.
And if someone listening, if they suspect that they're being groomed or exploited, what should they do? What resources are out there for them?
Well, the first and most important step is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Reach out for help. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, family member, teacher, counselor, or call a hotline dedicated to supporting victims of abuse. There are people who care, who want to help, and who will believe you.
There's no shame in asking for help. It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Exactly. There are organizations dedicated to providing support, guidance, and advocacy for victims of abuse. Reaching out, it's the first step towards break free from that cycle of exploitation and beginning to heal. And it's not just about individual action. We need to foster a culture of awareness, education, and open communication. Talk to your children about healthy boundaries, teach them about those warning signs, and empower them to speak up if they feel uncomfortable or unsafe.
It's about creating a community where these predators, they can't operate in the shadows, where their tactics are brought to light, and where victims feel supported and empowered.
Precisely. We can't erase the past, but we can learn from it, and we can work together to create a safer future. Gacy's case, it's a chilling reminder of the darkness that's out there, but it also highlights how important vigilance, awareness, and the power of speaking out against abuse really are.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the unsettling world of John Wayne Gacy, it's clear that his story, it's more than just a true crime case. It's a call to action. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a world where these kinds of horrors are less likely to happen.
And even in the darkest times, hope endures. We have the power to learn from the past, to support victims, and to work towards a future where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued.
It's a commitment. It's a commitment we all need to make. Remember, knowledge is power. And by understanding, the complexities of evil, we become better equipped to fight it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe.